What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's no secret now, the trade deadline is right around the corner. A couple of days time, we will truly figure out what the Chicago Bulls are all about. Is it about continuity or is it about change? Only one of the two things can happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be discussing the three players that have been in trade conversations and what I personally think about these three players. Will they leave the Chicago Bulls? Will they stay as a Chicago Bull? Will the Bulls make any big changes? We're going to discuss all these things in this video, but before we get any further, if you liked the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about the Chicago Bulls, and whether or not you believe that any of these three players will end up getting traded. Now, I must reiterate, this will not be a video about Zach LaVine. Now, Zach LaVine, as a trade rumor, continues to speculate, but with his injury and the surgery that he's having, I find it very unlikely that he's going to get traded, and I've already made a video about him in the past, so I don't want to really go into a deeper dive about that again. But there's three other players that seems to be generating massive amounts of trade rumors, and that's where we really need to start our discussion. So, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to start off with the guy that actually is probably one of our better players on this Bulls team, and his name is DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan has been generating interest, it looks like, at the end of the day, as he is on an expiring contract. People are talking about DeMar DeRozan. I think teams are interested in DeMar DeRozan, and for all we know, DeMar DeRozan could be a last decision trade that we decide to pull off to go into a different direction. So we need to discuss this right here, right now. So we need to discuss what teams could be interested in DeMar DeRozan. And I think the only teams that would potentially be interested in DeMar DeRozan is a team that could be down in the dumps right now, a team that could barely be surviving in their season and could use a DeMar DeRozan to pick up their season. And that is where I think DeMar DeRozan is best suited. Now, if you're looking at the contending teams in the East and the Western Conference, teams like the Bucks, Boston, you go to the West, Denver, Minnesota, you go to the OKC Thunder, I don't necessarily think any of those teams could use a DeMar DeRozan. Maybe OKC, if they could get the ball a little bit out of Shai's hands, but again, Shai's performing at an MVP caliber level, so you might not want the ball out of Shai's hands every single possession, so that's a bit tough. And honestly, I think a team that needs DeMar DeRozan is a team that needs them to save their season, so an act of desperation could come in for a guy like DeMar DeRozan. Now, I guess with all those teams interested, well, again, I'm looking at teams like the Rockets, maybe the Warriors, teams like potentially the Lakers. If you go to the Eastern Conference, maybe a team like the Hawks, a team like, again, maybe because the Bulls, the Bulls need their season saved, stuff like that, those types of teams. Maybe the Raptors, but who knows? I don't think the Raptors are going in that direction. So, yeah, those are the teams that I think would be interested in DeMar DeRozan. And I guess the key thing here is, will the Bulls actually consider trading DeMar DeRozan? Well, I've said this in the past, and I'm going to stick to this answer as well. I don't think DeMar DeRozan is getting traded out of Chicago. Again, I know there's speculation. I know people are talking about this. I know people and teams are monitoring this DeMar DeRozan situation, and it's very possible that he could get traded. The Bulls could switch their mindset, finally, and we could see a trade for DeMar DeRozan, but the reason why I don't see DeMar DeRozan getting traded is simply from what we've heard from the very beginning of the season. And it's not looked like there's any retraction coming from DeMar DeRozan or the Chicago Bulls. And that is, the Bulls want to keep DeMar DeRozan. We've known that all season. That is yet to have changed. We also know that DeMar DeRozan wants to stay with the Chicago Bulls. We know this. DeMar has publicly said this. The Bulls have publicly said they want to keep DeMar DeRozan. So at the end of the day, the only real situation here that I see happening is that the Bulls can't reach an agreement financially with DeMar DeRozan, and they decide to wait and see what happens in free agency. That's the only thing I can think of when it comes to the future of DeMar DeRozan and him potentially leaving this Bulls team. I can't see him getting traded now. We've seen the Bulls are very confident with how they handle their free agency business, especially with re-signing players. They re-signed Zach LaVine pretty quickly. They re-signed Nikola Vucevic pretty quickly. I could get the idea in my head that they can sign DeMar DeRozan pretty quickly if they wanted to. So I think we're going to run the risk in free agency, and we are not necessarily going to trade DeMar DeRozan this season. That's what I think. So let's move on to the second player. Alex Caruso, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what team could be interested in Alex Caruso? I would say any team but a rebuilding team. I think a rebuilding team could use an Alex Caruso to bring some veteran experience, but I think it's a disservice to Alex Caruso. He's in his prime years right now to go to a team like Detroit, for example, and in return, you know, sit in them, I guess, in a team that's not really going to be competing for anything. So I think a team like, example, what we just mentioned, teams like the Rockets, teams like the Atlanta Hawks, you know, those types of teams that are trying to save their season, trying to really go above and beyond this season, those are the teams that could desperately use an Alex Caruso, but also contending teams could use an Alex Caruso. Alex Caruso could be a missing piece for any of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Boston, again, teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, teams like the Denver Nuggets, teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves, these types of teams, the Kings, for example, as well, could desperately use an Alex Caruso as well. I've said it for a while. I think 28 out of the 30 teams could potentially use a guy like Alex Caruso. It really is as simple as that. He's that type of guy. So with that being said, can we see Alex Caruso traded from the Chicago Bulls? Now, I must reiterate, all of these trades are possible to happen. But I personally do not think the Chicago Bulls are going to trade Alex Caruso. Why? From every single trade rumor I've heard, from reporters, credible reporters, some reporters not so credible, but every single rumor I've ever heard about Alex Caruso is that the Bulls are looking for a ridiculous return back. 2 first-round picks, a young asset and a first-round pick, multiple young talents in the team. Maybe, again, we've heard rumors of an OG Anunoby type of deal. You know what I mean? And I just don't see where the Chicago Bulls are going to find that deal for Alex Caruso. Now, again, teams might be desperate. Teams might throw a big package at Alex Caruso and the Chicago Bulls. But that also doesn't change the fact that we've heard on numerous occasions the Bulls do not want to get rid of Alex Caruso either. So there's a couple of situations there. The Bulls don't want to get rid of Alex Caruso, and that is also why the Bulls are overvaluing Alex Caruso. Now, some people might argue he's not being overvalued. In my humble opinion, I think when you're asking for 2 first-round picks, I said it last season, I'll say it this season as well, you'd be absolutely foolish not to take 2 first-round picks for Alex Caruso. And if there's a young player with loads of potential to become a superstar caliber player with a first-round pick in there, you'd be foolish not to take that deal. But I just don't see that deal coming for Alex Caruso. And if the deal does come for Alex Caruso, I can't trust the Bulls to actually accept that deal for Alex Caruso. So that's where I kind of lie with that situation. Plus, I think a lot of Bulls fans don't even want to get rid of Alex Caruso at this point in time. So that's where I sit with Alex Caruso. The third player who had a fantastic game this time around against the Minnesota Timberwolves is Andre Drummond. Now, Andre Drummond is getting loads of trade rumors from the Lakers to Boston to, again, teams like the Atlanta Hawks. It seems like there's a bunch of teams interested and ready to pursue Andre Drummond. Why? His contract is very cheap. He produces at a high level for his contract. I think the guys that we were interested in, guys like Hartenstein and Mo Bamba, Hartenstein's doing very well. Mo Bamba, there's nowhere to be seen. So we've actually done well in terms of signing that backup center in Andre Drummond, who has delivered for the Chicago Bulls. And I think a team could use him as extra bench depth. Boston would use him as an extra bench quality player because they don't have a good bench, or I guess a high quality bench. The Lakers could do the same. There's a bunch of teams that could use an Andre Drummond for the contract that he's actually on. So, with that being said, you know, teams that are contending, teams that are trying to save their season would be interested, but would the Bulls trade Andre Drummond? Well, I must admit, out of all 3 players that are up for trade, I think Andre Drummond is the most likely. Again, if we get a first-round pick, do you really think the Bulls are going to refuse that for a guy on an expiring contract, getting $3 million, and is most likely to leave in the offseason to potentially go and pursue a starter's role? I'm not too sure. But I do think there is a package available there for Andre Drummond, and I think he's the most likely to get traded. But knowing the Bulls' history, I still don't put my faith in the Bulls to make a trade. So I'm going to say Andre Drummond probably won't get traded either. I just see this Bulls team staying the same. I think the only trade we were going to do is Zach LaVine. I think we were going to trade Zach LaVine by the deadline. I truly believe it. But after the season-ending surgery that he's having, I can't put my faith that they're going to trade Zach LaVine. And once Zach LaVine doesn't get traded, I can't see anybody else getting traded either. So that's just how I feel. I really thought the one trade we were going to do is the Zach LaVine trade. I thought we would have got desperate and we would have pulled the trigger. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, we don't get our trade for Zach LaVine. So therefore, I think everybody else is going to stay on this Bulls team. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Drop a like and a follow. And or subscribe if you are new. See you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care. And peace.